Parallel Mothers, which is the new film by Pedro Almodovar. Penelope Cruz and Lenny Smith are Janice and Anna, photographer and teenager respectively, who find themselves sharing an antenatal room. They are both single mothers-to-be. They give birth together. Their babies go into observation together. And when they go back to their respective homes, they swap numbers and perhaps more. So that's one strand of the story. In another strand, Penelope Cruz's character is trying to get help excavating a mass grave in her home village from the Civil War, where her great-grandfather is apparently buried. And Arturo, who's a forensic archaeologist, agrees to help her and indeed becomes the estranged father of the child, although he doubts his paternity because the child looks nothing like him and he says he doesn't feel any bond with it. She insists that he was her only partner, and the baby takes after one of her ancestors. And she refuses to do a DNA test, which is oddly similar to the kind of DNA test that he uses when excavating the past and trying to get some kind of resolution about this terrible legacy of conflict. Now, it sounds great because what it's got is, parallel mothers, parallel stories, joined together by threads of hidden ancestry, personal and political DNA, burial, excavation, past, present. When it premiered, I think it was Venice, it got a 9-minute standing ovation.
Wow.
Although, film festivals do that kind of thing, but it went down very, very well. Oddly, it lost out as Spain's entry for the foreign language film category, the best international feature, as they now call it, the 94th Oscars, which is actually The Good Boss, which has been shortlisted. It's got some great reviews, really, really great reviews, and so I feel a little bit grinchy to say that I don't love it. I think that there are things in it that are very good, but there are some problems. As with all of Almodovar's films, I mean, recently there was the short film, The Human Voice, which I thought was great. It's beautifully designed, great female leads in the script, really great performances, beautifully evocative score. And in principle, that idea of intertwining the personal and the political is something which usually works very well for me. And actually, in this particular case, if you think of Guillermo del Toro's films like Devil's Backbone and Pan's Labyrinth, which have done, events surrounding the Civil War, but seen as personal stories, often through the eyes of a child stories, utterly seamless. This didn't feel seamless. It felt like two stories, not so much running in parallel, but tangentially. So on the one hand, you've got the Civil War story, which is really, really interesting and laden with so much, weight. And then on the other hand, you've got the domestic story. So the Civil War story feels oddly sidelined. It's there, and then it kind of goes away, and then it comes back at the end. The domestic story, on the other hand, just feels contrived and weirdly emotionally unconvincing. I mean, there's a lot of sort of nonsense with home DNA kits and events that should be utterly remarkable and scandalous being passed over very, very, like just because they serve the story, but they just don't feel realistic. So it is very much a game of two halves. That doesn't mean that there aren't great things in it, because there are, not least, there's a great performance by Penelope Cruz, and it is really interesting to see Almodovar, you've seen this as well, haven't you? Mm-hmm. Doing that thing about, telling a political story and telling it through this kind of very personal, melodramatic narrative. And I so much wanted to like it more than I did. I just felt that it ended up feeling like two separate movies running in parallel as opposed to one movie intertwining its threads. We haven't spoken about this. What did you think?
I think I kind of agree with all of that. It's very watchable. It's beautifully shot. The colours are as striking and blocked out as you would imagine. But the Civil War story is completely overwhelmed by the family story, and I kind of thought, exactly as you said, it sort of appears and you go, oh, this is an interesting. So then totally disappears until the last few minutes. So it kind of didn't need it. If I don't know whether in the edit it had a much bigger presence and then it lost out. But if I agree, it's two parallel films, and it ended up by me thinking the Spanish War side of this, the Spanish Civil War side of the story, kind of deserved more. It was so still hugely divisive and a convulsion in Spanish history, still tearing so many people apart, even after all this time, that it kind of needed more than it was given at the end of the film.
The odd thing is, and I've thought about it a lot since I saw it, the intertwining does, because it's the DNA stuff, the heritage stuff, the buried secrets. When I think about it, I think, well, okay, that stuff is there through both stories. But it is definitely true that while I was watching it, I just felt that they didn't come together. They didn't intertwine like the double helix DNA strand, which is what I wanted them to do. They did feel like one and then the other and then this one. And without giving away any plot spoilers, there is one sequence in the film in which a great revelation occurs, which just seemed to me to be utterly unbelievable, to almost to exist only for the purposes of the plot to move forward. That something happens, a thing is revealed, and then something else happens, and it happens in a tiny, compact period of time that you just go, what? No.
Is that the spaceship?
That's the spaceship. Yes,
Yeah.
well done.
Done that once before.
That's for anybody who else. Yeah, that was because Tilda Swinton was in the previous Almodovar film, so well done.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's it's immensely watchable.
Immensely watchable, beautiful to look at, and great performances.
Yeah.
But somehow, the what's the phrase? The whole is less than the sum of its parts.
Yes.